if you're in the market as a landlord or as an investor, or you're looking to be, you'll know that the post-pandemic, there seems to be distinct changes occurring in the rental sector. Increased demand for certain type of rentals has been met with constrained supply for those same type of properties. This time last year, there was almost zero demand in city centres, for example, as stock levels were down to their lowest because of the lockdown. But this all seems to be changing as the reopening begins, and this is driving up some of the rents in those city centre areas and the demand. I mean, overall rents are still down year on year. In central Manchester, it's down 1%, 1.1%. In Leeds, it's down about 0.7%. Edinburgh is down about 3.2%. London overall is down about 10% year on year. Rental demand is building in city centres again. As the lockdown begins to ease, offices begin to reopen. Since April 5th, actually, tenant demand has risen in Edinburgh by 26%, in Leeds by 7%, and in Manchester by 5%. Rental demand in inner London also went up, but from a low base, obviously, as monthly rents in boroughs like Kensington and Chelsea hit their lowest levels since the Zoopla index began in 2011. Rental falls have started to ease as well, with rents down by about 9% in March compared to 10% in February. There are exceptions, of course. In the Midlands, Birmingham seems to be an exception where actually demand has slowed since the Easter. One of the reasons for this increase in demand is better affordability for renters. A lot of demand is driven by the dramatically increasing affordability. You can look at cities like Manchester, where rent now accounts for about 28% of the average earner's income, whereas before the pandemic it was about 30%. 2% is quite a lot when you're talking about a monthly amount for your rent. Rents in London are probably at their most affordable they've been for a decade. The monthly rent accounts for 42% of a single earner's gross income, whereas it used to be about 50% just over a year ago. 8% is a lot on a monthly rent. Rents are rising fastest in the northeast of England, for example, by 5.5%. They've risen, which is also one of the places that had the most affordable rental markets in the UK. So it seems that regions with a higher rental affordability are showing the biggest rental growth. This makes sense, and it also means that there could be even more headroom for rents to rise in some of these regions. The improved affordability in London, for example, probably means that we are getting to the tipping point where rents could start to rise again. The other thing to consider is the supply-demand imbalance. So we could be moving into the next phase where we have an elevated level of rental demand, but this could be constrained by supply. This, along with the low base that we're coming from and better affordability, could underpin stronger rental growth this year. But it will not be a quick snapback, let's be clear. The rental levels that we've seen at the start of 2020 were really high. Instead, we could be in for a slow build-up, and it could take maybe 18 months till we get to the point where the supply meets the demand. Service accommodation landlords are starting to switch back to long lets. So as I mentioned, during the previous pandemic, the service accommodation short lets went into the long let market, and with the return of global tourism, business travel, additional short let rentals that moved into the rental market in the early summer last year, starting to move back to the purposes they were originally intended. And so this will put pressure on supply and rental properties again. And this will also hopefully start to underpin a future rental price rise. The wild card in all of this is that at the same time, the increased availability of mortgages for those with lower deposits and higher LTVs may mean that more people are leaving the rental sector anyway. The sector means, people now are able to buy their first home. It's a lot easier for people to do that. And so we could see where there is actually less demand for rental properties as we go.